Nothing can stop the man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goals. Nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude, said Thomas Jefferson. Life doesn't always go the way we want it to, right? Whether it's a minor inconvenience like unexpected traffic, or a major setback in career, relationships, or health, one thing is certain: much of our success and fulfillment comes down to how we see things. It comes down to the meaning we choose to give to the events and circumstances we find ourselves in. Our attitude impacts or directs our thoughts, our energy, and most of all, the actions that we take. Mastering our attitude is not about being fake or suppressing our not so positive emotions. It is about using our intelligence to take responsibility for the impact our attitude has on the quality of our lives and that of others. While that might seem obvious, yet most of us just react to the world around us and allow our attitude to be dictated by our ever-changing circumstances. So is it correct that if we do not control our attitude, then our attitude will control us? Well, there are many such questions about human minds, emotions, personalities, and that's why humans are fascinating. In addition, our thoughts and perspectives keep changing as we face new experiences and learn from them. And because of this, we can spend a lifetime getting to know ourselves, and still there will always be something new to learn. The discipline that studies a lot of all of this is the discipline of psychology. Well then, without further ado, let's get ready to welcome on the show a clinical psychologist from UK, Adam Morgan. Hi Adam, welcome on the show.
Hiya.
Thanks for joining. So Adam, once a ritual of the monastery, today meditation is mainstream, and some psychologists are embracing the practice on several levels. Not only do more and more psychologists study it, use it in interventions and recommend it to patients, some actually practice it themselves as a self-care technique. And I know you've been meditating, but tell us how you got started, when you got started with meditation.
Yes, that's true. I've been meditating for a long time now. So I started in the kind of mid 90s, I suppose. I fell into it because, well, I ended up working somewhere where there was someone who was described to me as a meditation teacher. So I went and said to him, "Oh, that's something I want to learn how to do. Will you teach me?" And I've kind of ever since then I've been meditating. So I found it enormously beneficial in, I don't know, in it's hard to describe how many ways, in an infinite number of ways, really. So I've stuck with it, basically.
And you found that it was helping you on different levels. Thanks for sharing that, Adam. So now, do you recommend meditation to your patients? And if yes, then how do you choose which ones you recommend it to?
It is so. When I started meditating, you're right, it wasn't so mainstream as it is nowadays. Although obviously meditation's been around for thousands of years, so it's a bit weird to say that it's not mainstream. It's been around for a very long time. But in the West, in the UK, certainly in the health service where I was working, it wasn't very common. And I did some research when I was doing my doctorate on meditation, on Sahaja Yoga, the practice that this man where I was working was using, and the one that I learnt. And it was seen as quite controversial when we were going through the ethics committee. And nowadays, you're right, it's not like that at all. So it's even in England, we have a thing called the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, which is a government body that recommends healthcare treatments of all possible kinds, and you will find meditation recommended nowadays in that guidance. So it has really radically changed. So it is more common that people will want to learn to do some meditation these days.
So when you recommend it to your patients, if they do choose to practice it, what kind of results have you seen?
Well, I mean, I suppose particularly with Sahaja Yoga, I mean, Sahaja Yoga is meditation's a massive subject, obviously, and the mindfulness tradition that has been the one that's grown up and found its way into healthcare settings is a kind of a secular tradition. Well, it's become, they've turned it into a secular practice, a non-spiritual, a non-religious practice. In fact, when they first were using it, they were calling it attentional control training, I think. So just, which gives you an idea of the approach that they were taking with it. And in the health service in the UK, there would be an expectation that we would not be using non-secular things with patients. I think it's possible to kind of do in a way what they've done with mindfulness. So mindfulness is a kind of a Buddhist practice, really, and they've taken the Buddhism out in the health service and they just teach it as it is. So I have done a similar thing a little bit with Sahaja Yoga. So just teaching people some simple affirmations that they can use and other things to help enhance their meditation. And also particularly trying to kind of aim at this mental silence. So I think one thing that I've massively benefited from is this thoughtlessness, this mental silence, which is kind of I suppose, one way of describing what meditation is. And I think that's an important aim. Mindfulness doesn't particularly aim for mental silence. It kind of, my understanding is it more aims at a practicing, a witnessing of internal events, but doesn't necessarily still them down. It might do, but it's not necessarily what it's aiming to do or what it does do. I think many people find it helpful to do. Some of the evidence is that it's particularly helpful when people are feeling a bit better in themselves. So if someone, for example, has depression, some evidence suggests that meditating when you're very, very low, particularly the mindfulness side, I think, where you're just kind of potentially trying to observe internal events. And if those internal events are all quite unpleasant, then spending a lot of time doing that isn't a lot of fun. So, but certainly when people have a little bit of equilibrium, if you like, then a lot of people find, meditation is a way of really helping prune the garden, if you like, to keep things in place, to look after their internal world.
You mentioned about the secular aspect, and from what I understand, people of different faiths, religions, nationalities practice Sahaja Yoga, and Sahaja Yoga truly is about silencing the mind, and it does not have to do anything with whatever religion people follow. Now, is that true? Because you also mentioned that you had challenges introducing it to your organization.
I think there is a challenge with it. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of mental health trusts anyway these days, they try and talk about or acknowledge the importance of spirituality in people's lives. They'll sometimes have even seen it in policies. In fact, I remember many years ago on a ward that I went to, they had a faded poster on the wall saying that the aim of the ward was to look after people's physical, mental, psychological and spiritual well-being. And I remember thinking, wow, I wouldn't expect that to be on the poster. But then I think they struggle with how to do that, and they struggle with the acceptability of that. And so I think well, they always say, don't they, don't talk about politics and religion. If you don't want to fall out with someone, don't talk about politics and religion. So I think there is a little bit of a challenge around organizations doing that. I think in the modern world, lots of organizations are quite concerned about litigation and concerned about their public image. And so they often want to avoid controversy.
Yeah, I don't think there should be anything controversial, but unfortunately, like you mentioned, there may be some kind of over-analysis or overthinking, because it's really about silencing the mind, and people can continue to practice whatever they practice, and that's what Sahaja Yoga has been about. And of course, we do understand that there may be apprehensions, but I think if it works, it's good.
I think that they're different things, aren't they? So as a large organization, so the NHS is one of the biggest employers in the world. As a large corporate organization, it has a lot of corporate concerns that make absolutely no sense to anybody, other than to lawyers and to people involved in that world. So I think you're right. If you're just looking at the individual aspect, then meditation and finding this mental silence, this thoughtlessness, there is nothing really particularly troublesome or controversial about it. But it's,
I think more so because there has been so much research on effects of Sage Yoga meditation, so much that is available for people to refer to, and that says a lot about the effectiveness of the technique. But would you want to share more about the research to substantiate the effect of Sage Yoga meditation on psychology of human beings?
yeah, so there's, as you say, there's been lots of different research over the years, well, as happens with the passage of time, there's more and more as time goes by. There is evidence around a range of physical health problems and a range of mental health things. In fact, the research that I did all those years ago, that was about offering people with who were struggling with depression and anxiety, teaching them Sahaja Yoga meditation, and yeah, it was highly effective and it worked well. They've also there's been studies looking at this kind of mental silence side, doing functional MRI scanning and things of that nature to look at how the changes in the brain, the brain's kind of functioning and the brain waves that are present, and so you can physically see the changes as well, which is another. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that sometimes we need these confirmation. I mean, you can feel it as a person, and yet we also like a picture. So they've been able to get these kind of other confirmations of the change, and that when people say, "Oh, I feel thoughtless," they can see that that correlates with a change on their MRI scan. There's been quite a lot of research. I think there's a psychiatrist in Australia who's done quite a bit of work, but it's all around the world really. In India, in Russia, in the UK, everything. Yeah, depression and anxiety, ADHD, autism, and yeah, physical health problems. I think there's some stuff around asthma for sure. I think diabetes, all sorts of different studies have been done. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, if there are any doubts, there always is this option for each of us to go see, experiment ourselves, explore for ourselves, and find out if it works for us or not. But I guess, there's a lot that we can refer to just enhance our understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I liked about it when I was learning was the kind of approach that I heard a lot from the people I was meeting, but also from Shumataji, so the who was teaching Sajika for many, many years, was this kind of almost an empirical approach, which is saying, we'll try this out and see how you find it. What's your experience? Does it work? And how do you find it? And I think I really like that approach of grounding your knowledge in your own experience rather than through logic or through reasoning, because you can always change your mind, can't you? I mean, someone can convince you of this and then someone else can come along and convince you of something else. But I think it's different if you ground your knowledge or your experience in what you've actually personally experienced. And I found that as a really helpful principle in how I learnt and what I learnt, and how I kind of made sense of how to meditate, was basing it basically on my experience of it rather than on what people say about it or what you read about it or that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think it's only scientific to experiment and then either accept or reject.
Yeah.
So, Adam, any differences that you could bring out between mindfulness and meditation?
Well, I think, like I said, the main thing that certainly as practicing it, this mental silence or thoughtless awareness is the point of meditation. And I guess it corresponds well what you were saying earlier in your introduction about attitude. A lot of how we perceive the world and we perceive ourselves, how we feel about ourselves in the world, comes from ideas in our minds. And these ideas are not necessarily true. They're not necessarily real. And yet they can enormously impact ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, about our mental health, affect our physical health. There's more and more evidence showing that chronic stress is really not good for our physical health. And mental silence kind of takes you out of that arena. It gives you a break from whatever ideas, thoughts, belief, philosophies that you might have or you may be dealing with. And I think that's enormously, well, it kind of, to me, it's very, the experience of it is very enormously refreshing. It's like, having a clean slate. It's like wiping the decks or cleaning a room. So I think that that experience is potentially transformative, I think, and refreshing, and very protective of your mental health. So I think for me, that's a really fundamental part of it. And I think, even traditionally, actually, if you look traditionally about mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness was really a preparatory stage for jhana, for knowledge, for knowing, for becoming, for having your, this kind of deeper side of yourself becoming real. So I think, aiming for, in a way, Sahaja Yoga does things back to front. It kind of starts at the end. It kind of says, well, we'll start with the end point. We'll start with what we're aiming for, which is, thoughtless awareness. We'll start there, and we'll sort out things afterwards. Whereas mindfulness kind of goes the other way around. The tradition's the other way around. Or let's manage our mind so that we're ready to go beyond it, in a way. And I think in the certainly in the Western life, trying to do it, if you like, the right way around, so at the beginning, is kind of impossible. I think I think to be given this mental silence at the beginning is a fundamental foundation for establishing that. So I think that's really important, that the mental silence side of it, and the thoughtfulness of awareness.
That's very nicely explained, and thank you for that explanation. And now, Adam, would you have any final messages for people dealing with psychological issues, or maybe, anyone listening to you right now?
I had a friend many, many years ago, an old school friend of mine, say to me that, because he knew I was a psychologist, he knew I'd been training finished training as a psychologist, and he said to me, what would you recommend? A bit like you've just said, what would you recommend I do? And I am. And, I was kind of thinking about it, and I actually said to him, I said, actually, the thing I'd really recommend, and this is going to sound a bit crass, but it's true. I said, the thing I'd really recommend is learning this meditation I've been learning, because I said, it's been the most helpful thing for me. It genuinely has. Psychology is an interesting field, and it has a lot of interesting things in it. And I think there's a lot of value in some of it. But without this ability to be beyond your minds, to be able to be free from what's in it, I'm not sure it's a lot of good to anyone. If I'm completely, I think you need a foundation from which to build these things on. And so I think, I would, in terms of recommendation, I'd say, give it a go. Try out meditation. I'd obviously recommend Sahaja Yoga, but try it out and see how you get along with it, and stick to your experience. Be true to what you discover and what you experience. Don't worry about what other people say or what anyone tells you or whatever. Just stick to your own experience of it. I think that's good, gives you a good foundation.
Right. And it sounds like I'm not here to sell meditation. This is something that has worked for me, and I suggest you try and see for yourself. Well, that's a good approach, I think, to just encourage someone to go ahead without any preconceived notions or prejudices and just experiment it.
And to practice, it's like anything. I've fallen in love with Indian classical music, and have been learning that over the years as well at the same time. And it's the same as that. I think there's a lot of parallels. Practicing is that you have to practice. If you want to learn a skill, you have to practice. You have to sit down and you have to practice. And if you get to the point when you love that thing that you're practicing, and then it's not work, it's something that you enjoy, but you have to give it a chance. You can't just expect it to be instant. Although sometimes, some people do find with meditation they get very quick results. I wasn't one of those people. I had to work a little bit, but I was kind of up for that. I kind of, in my mind, was ready to think, I need to give this a fair shot. I can't just expect instant results.
And is it sitar that you're learning?
I do. I play the sitar. Yeah, yeah. I've become an addicted sitar player over the
And how
years.
many years have you been learning that?
About 20. I'm not
Oh,
exact.
wow, really?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. A
that's
long
really
time. A
nice.
long,
And I
long
think
time.
I could have asked you to be able to play something for us, but I guess I missed that opportunity.
Yeah, I have. Well, I could send you a. I've got a short clip I could send you if you want to.
Yeah, do send it to me, and maybe on our next opportunity, we can have you play something and take us into a
Yeah, of
meditative
course.
state with the music that you play. And I really want to
Yeah,
thank you for the time you took, Adam, in talking to us, and I will look forward to more opportunities of speaking to you. Thanks for
yeah.
being on the
No
show.
problem.
Thank you.